Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Riderflex podcast. Along with our daily tips on career advice, our show features entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, and influencers from all types of industries, sharing their stories, providing advice based on their experiences, and chatting about their companies. If you're interested in being a guest on our show, you can email us at podcast@riderflex.com. And if you like today's episode, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and give us a quick thumbs up. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Manna, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I appreciate it. Where are you today?
Well, I'm in Los Angeles, and it's a rainy day.
Oh, is it?
It is, yeah. It's raining. It's supposed to be raining for the next few days. So.
Oh, okay. Is that where you live? Is that where you live now, LA? Okay.
Yeah, I've been here about 14 years. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me about your background. I mean, where you grew up, your parents. Give us some early family life stuff, if you don't mind. Go for it.
So I was born and raised in Bombay, India. Then I moved to South Africa when I was about 8.
Okay.
Grew up in Cape Town for a little bit. Lived in London for 2 years, Canada for about a year, and then the last 14 years in LA.
Where did you graduate high school before you went to college? Yeah, where'd you graduate?
That was Cape Town.
In Cape Town. Okay, so you were in high school in South Africa, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, how did you go to school in Cleveland? I saw that you got your degree from a school in Cleveland. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I did my master's. I did my master's in business at Case Western in Cleveland. Yeah.
Were you living in Cleveland, or why'd you pick that school? I'm just curious.
I got a good scholarship. And also they have a really good law school. So I did my master's in law at the same time. Yeah.
I see. What'd your folks do? Tell me about your mom and dad.
So my dad was just like me, is just like me. He has been a serial entrepreneur all his life. Never worked for anyone else. He had a job for a month and got fired when he was 21, and then never ever tried to work for anyone else. But he was also into social work, so he did a lot of work for underprivileged communities. Okay. So I got exposed to it at a very young age, and he was, he's exactly like me. My mom has passed away. She had cancer for about 10 years.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so she passed away 2010. Yeah.
Okay, 2010. You were already grown and out of the house, of course, by then. But okay.
But I did actually go back in her last few months. I nursed her. She was at home, and so I was looking after her in the last 2 months before she passed away. Yeah.
That is so hard to do, right? So she was probably put on hospice or whatever towards the end. Yeah, that's very difficult. We could probably do a full episode just on that topic, right? How hard that is. But I guess, do you feel grateful that you got to be there at the end and be with her?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she was a homemaker all her life, and my dad was kind of gone doing his own thing. So she raised 3 kids, really like a single mom would, And then when we grew up, we had our own lives and we left. And that was around the time that she had cancer. So she struggled and fought cancer really herself with my dad. My dad was always there with her. They had a long marriage, 35 years. And then, so I was gone for most of it. And then I remember the year before she passed away, she called me. And I was with the American Red Cross, and she said, "Oh, does American Red Cross do mercy killing, euthanasia?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? What are you saying?" Because I had no idea what she was dealing with. I mean,
wow.
I didn't know it was really advanced at that point, but they were not hiding, but not really telling us everything. She was in India at that point, and I was here in the US. So I didn't feel good about it. I was like, oh my God, this woman spent her entire life for her kids, and now that she really needs us, we're all gone. My brother was in New Zealand. My sister's been here for the last 20 years. So
Okay.
then I took a one-way flight, and I was like, I'll just stay with her. But she passed away 2 months later. Yeah.
Your brothers, so you had one sister and one brother, so 3 kids altogether. Okay.
Yes.
What does your brother and sister do?
So my sister is a vice president in a bank. She lives in Ohio, and my brother is a chef. So he used to live in New Zealand, and then he went back. He's with my dad now. Yeah.
I see. Okay. And your dad is still in Bombay?
He is. Yeah, he moved back. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, thank you for some of that overview. So you had the entrepreneurial bug early on, right, from your dad. You kind of had that inside you. Did you know what you wanted to do? I guess, did you think you were going to be a lawyer and then you switched gears? Tell me what happened there.
That's a great question. So I feel like I knew that I always wanted to make a lot of money
Okay.
and help a lot of people and never work for anyone else. But you know how once you start growing up, you get influenced by what people are saying around you, people who you look up to, what they're doing. And my dad was really gone for most of my life. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him, but I did look up to him and I wanted to be like him, but I didn't know what that meant. And somehow in the first few years of my life, I mean, looking back, I would never go to business school, to be honest. I would never go to law school. I would
Really?
have just jumped into what I'm doing right now at an early age, because I found my way after a ton of student loan debt and ultimately not using any of what I was studying in what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. How did you get the passion for? So you wanted to help people. You knew that you wanted to do something to kind of make a difference in the world, but you also knew like that you needed to make money, right? Both. It's got to be a little bit of both, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to sustain yourself, and even running a nonprofit is running a business, isn't it? It's the business of helping people. So you have to make sure that it's sustainable, and you can't just survive on donations. You have to make sure that there's a revenue stream to running your nonprofit.
You were working though as an employee for the American Red Cross, right, up until 2014. And what, did you just come home one day and you're like, okay, I don't know. I don't want to be an employee. I want to do my own thing. How did it happen?
So I graduated out of law school, business school in 2007, which is the year of the Great Depression. The economy had crashed. There were no jobs. And I remember sitting in a Starbucks here in LA, and I was sending out thousands of resumes every single day. No one getting back to me. And I was like, oh my God, I have all these degrees and, no one wants me. And then I decided to go volunteer for the Red Cross. So I started volunteering for them. And
I see.
Anything I do, I think it's my job to do it right, So even though I was a volunteer, I was taking it a little too seriously, and they liked it. So they offered me a job within 4 months of me volunteering for them.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. And then I started at an entry-level position, but within 3 or 4 years, I became the COO for the Red Cross. I was probably the youngest COO at the American Red Cross.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But what I realized doing that work was very fascinating for me, what they do. And if anyone wants to be in a nonprofit, they must work with the Red Cross because it's amazing training.
Okay. Good to know.
What I realized was I wasn't happy. Everything looked great on paper, right? I had a great paying job. People liked me. I liked everyone else. I liked what we were doing, but I never got to experience what Red Cross really does because I was in the office 6 a.m., 6 p.m., fundraising and running the organization. And I, 3-4 years into it, I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be out in the field, in the trenches, experience what people do, how people live, travel, adventure. That's all I wanted. So
Gotcha.
I quit Red Cross. The very next day I quit. And they offered me a pay raise. They're like, why don't you stay? We'll give you a pay raise. I'm like, well, it's not about that. It's not about money. And I realized that it's really not about money for me. It's about experiences. It's about following my passion. And my passion lays in human experience, seeing how people live in different countries and how privileged we are here in the US.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to do that, so I quit Red Cross and I founded Gift Global Initiative. Just before that, I was kind of lost for a year. So I didn't start Gift right away. So in that 1 year after I left Red Cross, I was trying to do fashion designing with a friend of mine. And
that's why. Okay, so that's why I saw the pictures of the models and dresses on.
Yeah,
I think I saw it on maybe your Facebook or something. So that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah. So what I did was I was sketching. So I was making dresses because I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And someone.
And what were you, like 22, 23? How old were you?
I was 26. I was about 26.
Oh, you were about 26. Were you married, kids, anything like that? Or
no.
Okay. All right.
So I was sketching and putting my sketches online, and a production house, a fashion designing production house from London saw those designs, and they reached out and they say, why don't you come show your designs at the London Fashion Week? I was like, what is that? Yeah. So I did that. I ended up showing, I had no idea how to do it. So I had to go from taking my designs to making it into a dress. But I figured all of that within 3 or 4 months, and I had like nine or 10 different designs that I showed at London Fashion Week. That was 2015, and it sold out. I mean, we had probably about 500 pieces total, but it all sold out during the Fashion Week, and I was like,
really?
Wow. Yeah, I was surprised. And then some people from HSN, QVC agents who work with these different channels, they started reaching out to see if I wanted to take my designs to HSN, QVC, the telemarketing companies. But I wasn't really feeling it. I was like, this is good, and thank God it worked out. But I don't know if this is what I want to do. I wasn't feeling the vibe of the fashion industry.
Yeah. All right.
And
you just didn't like it, huh? You just didn't like it?
No, because I felt a lot of people were picking the dresses, they were wearing it. And what I realized that some of them wouldn't give you credit for wearing your dresses because you're not paying them to do that. And I found that extremely ungrateful. Women who are very successful models or actresses, they would wear the dresses, but they would not say that the designer is so and so because you're not paying them.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
You have to pay people. You have to pay influencers to actually say that they're wearing your dress. And I get the business side of it, but I think I was more into the human side of it. To me, it's like, let's say if I act in a movie and I don't get credit for that, how would I feel? You know what I mean? That's how I felt as a designer, that I have to actually pay you, but I didn't ask you to wear my dress. You picked it, but you are not saying that it's by so and so because you're not paid to do that. And I found that I met a lot of amazing people in the fashion industry, but there's also that side to it where it's really money minded, and that wasn't one of my core values.
Okay.
I decided to. I did a lot of licensing. So I started licensing the designs out to bigger companies.
All right.
But during that time, I was still engaged out of pocket doing my social work, going to Mexico, working with kids who had cancer, sex trafficking victims. I was still doing that, but I was doing.
Were you doing that? Were you doing that just on your own, or was GGI already established, or you were
No,
just
it
kind of
wasn't.
okay?
I was doing it. I was raising money for other nonprofits who were in the field
I
of
see.
anti-human trafficking. I was with American Cancer Society, but all on volunteer basis. I was just helping out because I was always leaning, my spirit, I guess, knew that I had to go that way. So even if I was doing fashion, I was doing all these other things, one side of me was always in this work.
I see.
And,
All right.
And obviously along the way, I just don't like how nonprofits are run. I don't like how they market. I always feel like nonprofits exploitation, and I don't have that mindset. So I wanted to create something which is more empowered, an organization that would do the work that other nonprofits do, but it's from a prevention standpoint or empowerment perception. I wanted to change how people look at nonprofits, because nonprofits are not poor. They make a lot of money. So I decided, you know what, this is it. I have to be in this because
you're going to start your, okay.
Yeah.
Were you the solo founder, or did you have co-founders for Global Gift?
I have a co-founder, yes. So Keith Kirkwood, he came from the government side. So he used to be on the LA City Council, and he didn't like how government is so restricted in a lot of ways, because obviously we have democracy. So if you have to get a sidewalk done, 10 people have to vote for it and it never gets done. And he felt restricted and he thought, nonprofits is a better way of doing things, because you can raise money and get the things done, which are, there's less fraud and abuse if your heart is in the right place.
Okay. And so you and him both had a little bit of experience raising money, a little bit. So you had.
Yeah. I mean, I was with the Red Cross for 5 years, Yeah. And
How did you pick? How did you pick Global Gift Initiative, or how did GGI, how did that?
The name?
Yes.
No idea. We wanted something that was global, which has the word global in it, because I never wanted to stay local. I wanted to expand it, make sure we could be in different countries. And it's just, I don't know, it just came about, We were just sitting and brainstorming names, and I was like, I like that name. And then I realized that my name, Manna, means gift, but that didn't come to me until later. Someone asked me that question. They asked me,
I said it wrong too. It's Gift Global Initiative, by the way. And for the listeners, it's GGIUSA.org, right?
Yeah.
GGIUSA.org. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so give us the overview. Give me the 3-minute overview of Gift Global Initiative. Tell me, go for it. What does it do?
So Gift Global Initiative is a diplomacy humanitarian organization. We are in about 17 countries, and all our programs are geared towards prevention, empowerment, making sure that families who live in underprivileged areas don't have to rely on outside entities like governments and other nonprofits to provide for their own kids. So every program, every initiative that we do is meant to empower them so that they can, it's giving a hand up, not a handout.
I see. Okay. And you raise money from any particular areas, or? Yep.
We raise money several different ways. Just like any other nonprofit, we raise money by asking for money, which is fundraising. We raise money through grants, government grants, public grants, public and private grants. We also raise money through revenue streams, meaning we create a business model inside the nonprofit. So that's what we're working on for this year. Is where you provide a service or product and then you get paid for it, just like any business would. So that becomes the revenue side of the nonprofit.
How many employees do you have total?
Great question. So we have a very small team. We are 10 people, and all our operations are run by volunteers.
Okay, very good. Do you have a particular area that you have a passion for, whether it's fresh water or, sewage systems or trafficking, or like what's your specific
So
passion?
one of the programs that I really absolutely love, which we are doing that in about 10 countries right now. It's called Sports for Solar. So what that program is about is let's take an example of South Africa. So there is this community that has 4,000 homes. It is built right next to the Nelson Mandela Museum, which they have spent a lot of money on that. But this 4,000 household community has no postal address, so they call informal settlement. They don't have water, they don't have electricity, they don't have absolutely nothing. So we picked,
I'm just gonna let that sink in for a minute. I just want that to sink in for the listeners for a minute. You're telling me that next to the Nelson Mandela Memorial or Museum,
Yes,
there's 4,000 people living there with no water and electricity.
4,000 households. So there are more people, but there are
Oh,
4,000 homes.
do they have sewage? What do they do
And
for
they
sewage
call them
system?
informal settlement.
How does their sewage work?
It's all over the place. I mean, you walk through it, and if you go on our Instagram, or if you go on my Instagram, you'll see those pictures and videos from the village. It's not a village; it's in Johannesburg, so it's a big city. But absolutely, I mean, these people live in horrific conditions. There's no light. You'll see the kids have burn marks because they use candles, they use kerosene, wood, and the shacks will go up in fires every few weeks. So what we do is, let's take an example of this community, and we run a lot of our programs there. With Sports for Solar, we appoint coaches who would coach kids who are interested in sports like soccer, tennis. They coach them throughout the year. And then twice a year, we have a sports day where about 500 to 1,000 kids will come together. They play, they compete. And instead of going home with plastic trophies, they go home with portable solar light.
Uh-huh.
So some of these families they have zero light. So it's a big deal for them. It might seem like a small thing, but it's not.
It's not.
Yeah. So they go home with the solar light. It helps the kids travel safe to school, because a lot of South Africa has really bad public transport. So the kids don't have school buses like we do over here. So they walk to school, especially kids who live in these settlements. They will walk 3-4 miles a day to go to school on empty stomach. So the solar light will keep them safe because they can put that in the backpack,
I see.
and it
I see.
charges. The businesses can stay open longer if they have a light. The women can travel safe, so that just a small light can do so much. But instead of just giving it away, the kids are earning it.
I like that. That's a great idea. Why the light? Why did you pick lighting as a target? Is that because other nonprofits are focused on water or sanitation or whatever, and you saw that as an opportunity?
Well, it's because the number of medical kids. So we have a medical fund that pays for medical expenses of kids who live in these areas. Because a lot of times, if you go to the U.S.-Mexico border, we do a lot of work by the U.S.-Mexico border as well. And right in Tijuana, there's a community, about 1,000 homes. Same situation. They're stealing light because they don't have light. They don't have water. They don't have running water. And it is... there are about 1,000 homes. Every home has 5 to 6 kids. A lot of these moms are single moms. They're teen moms. Many of them are either trafficked, or they get into prostitution because they don't have any other way of providing for the family. Most of the families don't have a dad. The dad's either in the prison, or there's just no dad. So we work in those communities. And one of the things that you notice is because of not having light, they use kerosene, they use wood, and they live in these makeshift shacks. And every few days, the shacks will go up in fire, and the kids get stuck in it. And there were horrific cases of kids being burnt alive, kids dying from it. So a simple solar light, which is $10, can solve that problem. They'll have light. They don't need to use
Yeah.
the other sources of light. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Is somebody manufacturing those little lights for you as part of their donation? Is that what?
Yeah. So we don't bring anything from other countries, meaning if we are doing a program in Mexico, we try to buy locally.
Okay.
So in South Africa, we have a man who actually started his own solar company, and he's amazing. So we buy from them. It's local. He's providing jobs to about 100 people in South Africa.
That's wonderful. Is it has to be emotionally difficult for you to go to these places, see these things, and then go back to LA with your regular life in your regular house, and where you just flip on the light switch whenever you want to, right? Or you flush the toilet, or you turn on fresh water. Is that hard for you emotionally? Do you have a hard time with that?
I think you develop your muscle for that. It's like working out. So initially you have a lot of empathy. People who get into this work are very empathetic. And there's a difference between being empathetic and being compassionate, right? So when you are empathetic, you're feeling it, you're drained, you're crying, right? When you're compassionate, there's a wall between you and what's happening. So you can act, you can change, you can help, you can empower. But the more you do this work, it's the same with animal rescue. You go to a shelter day one and you can't stand there for 15 minutes because it's so unbearable. You feel, if you're an animal lover, you cry because all these dogs have been abandoned. Stay there for a month, and every day you can stay longer and longer and longer because you start developing your muscle for the work. Yeah.
Do you find it frustrating that a lot of people in the U.S. just take life for granted, and when you see people in this country complaining about things, little things, based on where you've been, how do you react to them? What do you just shake your head? And I mean, how does that feel when you see somebody complaining about something silly, knowing that there's a child?
I believe that we need a change in our education system here in the US, where kids are exposed to how other kids live in different countries at a very young age, to make them more global. When I grew up in different countries. And I remember watching all kinds of news. I used to watch CNN, Fox, BBC. I didn't watch like local news growing up. So I knew what was happening in different parts of the world as a child. And a lot of kids do that growing up. In the US, you'll see everything is so home-based. You ask, people don't know certain countries, like you name a country in Africa, and what is that?
Right.
I mean, it's like, oh my God, like you are an educated person, you don't know this Burkina Faso exists. Like that's a country in Africa. So first of all, we definitely need that change where our kids are exposed to how other people live, because we are so blessed. We are so blessed in this country.
So true.
And all you have to do is cross the border. You don't even have to fly to Africa. Just go to Mexico, go to Tijuana, and don't go there to have a vacation. Go into these communities to see how people live. And then come back, and I think this will feel like heaven.
I remember the very first time we went to vacation in Cancun, and we flew into the airport, across the border. And when they put you on the little bus from the airport to go to the resort, you kind of have to drive through some areas that are pretty rough, right? As they're taking you to the resort. And I remember thinking, wow, okay, this is a completely different world. Like we live in this little sheltered bubble in the US. We just have no idea. Most people have no idea how other children are living in these countries.
Yeah, I mean, the place where we work in Mexico, that slum, and people take offense when I say slum, but it really is a slum.
Okay.
And people, it's controlled by the cartel, the Mexican cartel. So it's not just disgusting to live there, it's unsafe. And we've been working there 7 years. And obviously the cartel now knows us. They know that we come there, we help the kids, we work with the families. And they're always there. So when we have events, you'll see the members of the cartel will just hang out. They'll be there, keep an eye. You just have to, ignore that and do what you do.
Have you ever been threatened or shot at or anything?
I think the people kind of protect us over there, because I remember once we were locked out of we were supposed to use a place to teach kids self-defense, and we showed up in the morning and it was locked out, and I know what was going on. It was, but then the family set up tents for us so we could teach the kids self-defense, because the moms and the dads and the families know what we are trying to do is good for their kids, They don't want their kids to live in that situation, I guess. So you're always protected by the people you're helping. But again, it can only go so far, especially if you're against like the cartel. You just have to like be quiet and do your job.
Do you ever have the feeling that you're never going to be able to fix it? Like it's the problem is just so massive worldwide with water or trafficking or whatever. Do you ever feel like you're just battling uphill and there's no fixing it, and you make a little bit of a difference?
No, I don't, because I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to help one person at a time. So even if I help one child a year, that's fine. You have to be very clear about your vision when you get into this work. You cannot, like you said, you could really get lost and be like, this is hopeless. Like you see like these corporate nonprofits will pay they raise millions of dollars and they pay millions of dollars to celebrities to become ambassadors so they can bring in more money, and very little work gets done. And I speak for a lot of these nonprofits. They invite me as consultants, and that is what enrages me, is people don't understand that you have to be really mindful about what you're giving and who you're giving it to. It's not about just giving. It's not, if you have $10 and you go to a nonprofit and give it, great. But do you know what they're going to do with it? No one's asking that question. You ask those questions to grassroots level nonprofits who are actually doing the work. But you're okay donating that amount of money to corporate nonprofits thinking that they have their thing together. They don't. They actually spend a lot of their money on brand ambassadors, and they piggyback on smaller nonprofits to get the work done.
Sounds to me like you have a real passion about some of these nonprofits that aren't being ran correctly. Maybe your business should be a consulting firm that goes around and teaches these nonprofits how they should behave and act and spend money.
Well, I rather teach the donors, how people run their business is not my business, but I can teach that is one of the roles. I do speak a lot at events. This is what I'm doing with you right now in this podcast too, is really the role of an educator for people, because there are so many people who do good. There's so many people who want to give. And especially in the US, like we are ranked number 1 in terms of giving, but it's not mindful giving. It's just, I can tell you situations with just gift, there are people who will donate, let's say $5,000 a year for a child because they feel passionate about helping a child. The next year they don't do it, but they don't even let us know until the last day the child has to go to school, and they're like, oh, we can't do it this year. It's like, yeah, but you just didn't tell us on time, so now we don't have time to find another sponsor. So it's called mindful giving. If you can give year after year, that's fine, but mindful giving is where you give and you communicate, you follow up, you ask questions. That's mindful giving. I don't know how many people do that.
Have you done any TED Talks or any conferences on mindful giving? That seems like I
speak a lot. I do a lot of conferences and events, especially in countries who are not, where giving is not a regular thing. The governments might give, but the people, for them, it's like, oh, we don't want to give, or giving is like looked down upon. They feel like if you give, you don't talk about it. And one of the things, if you do give, if you do a good thing, a good act, you should talk about it, because then you inspire other people to do the same. So yeah, we do speak a lot at events.
If you had the power on planet Earth to distribute wealth more evenly to impoverished, nations, would you take wealth from some people and spread it around to poor countries if you had the
No,
power?
no, I wouldn't do that.
No.
What I would do is the people who are underprivileged and poor to create some kind of, we do have a program like that. It's called GGI Works. It's creating jobs for these people. It's not about taking from someone and giving it to someone else. That doesn't work that way. Because what you do need is a sustainable system where I can give you housing, free housing, but if you don't have a job, how are you going to take care of that housing, right? How are you going to provide for your kids? How are you going to eat? So it all starts with people working. It all starts with creating jobs. So, and we do that with GGI Works. We teach these women in Mexico, in Africa, women who were, when we started working in these communities, these women were either trafficked or they would get into prostitution. That was the only thing they knew. So now we run classes like stitching, sewing, all kinds of, urban agriculture classes, so they can grow their own food, they can stitch, they can sell. We teach them e-commerce, so they can sell their clothes, they can sell whatever they're making and make some money at least, and that's what's needed is jobs creation.
Very good. Very good, Manna. How about this? I want to ask you, when you come across criminal activity like human trafficking, when you see it or you find out people that are involved, what do you do? Do you guys work with the authorities to inform them, or how do you attack that? I'm just curious.
So let me tell you, about 15 years ago, when I was doing this work out of pocket and raising money for nonprofits who were helping sex trafficking victims, I wanted to see what they were doing with the money. So I found myself on a police raid that was going in to rescue victims of sex trafficking.
Okay.
And I thought that it will be 17, 16-year-old women or men, So we go in there and we found 3 and 4-year-old babies being trafficked, groomed into trafficking. And that was an eye opener for me because I didn't know that they start kids that early. And some of these children who are 3, 4, 5 years of age, they are sexually assaulted many times a day by the trafficker to groom them into trafficking. That's how trafficking works. And then when they grow up and they're 16 and 17, they don't know anything different. They just think that's their life. Okay, they think that this is it for them. So we used to work with the cops. There's a human trafficking task force in the US in every city. So if you come across a suspicious activity, you can always report it to them. They're incredibly effective. Like they are 24 hours online trying to bust all these like scams and traffickers reaching out to children online, because now trafficking has changed. And I'll tell you what, cartels have gone from selling drugs to selling women and kids because they make more money doing it. You can sell drugs once and you can sell a woman many times. You can sell a child for many years and they make more money of that. But our human trafficking task force in every city, all you have to do is just reach out to them. They're amazing. With GIFT, we work on prevention. So we come across more cases where kids are in areas which have cartel activity or they could fall victims to the cartel, but they are not. At that point, they're not. So we try to work more with kids who are not exploited, but they find themselves in situations where they would be if you don't bring them resources to get out of it. Does that make sense?
How in the world do you rehabilitate a 10-year-old girl that's been sexually assaulted since she was 3? I mean, that is I would imagine, a very difficult task.
Yeah, I have a child. He was 4. I believe that when we rescued him, he was 4. He is now in New York State University, and I recently, I think 2 years ago, received a letter from him.
Wow.
thanking me. And he said that he
Wow.
at some point will probably get into this work, but he's not ready. He doesn't want to get back to it. And that just shows you that he was rescued when he was 4 or 5. So, and, he had enough time. He's 18 or 17, I believe now. But it's not possible.
There's a lot of bad things people can do on the planet. There's a lot of bad things people can do overall, but I must say, like sexually assaulting a 3-year-old has got to be one of the lowest things you could do as a human being. I just can't think of anything much worse, really. I mean, if I couldn't be a cop doing that, because if I was a cop and I raided a room and I saw a man sexually assaulting a 3-year-old, I'd probably just shoot him on the spot. I mean, I couldn't do it because I would just shoot him. I would just shoot him right there.
Yeah, human beings are not the same as their behavior, though. The people who do these acts have been through some kind of abuse or something in their life, which is why they're there. And trust me, when I started doing this work, I was enraged. Like, I wanted these people to not see them ever again. And I mean, any normal human being would say that, right? It's like, how can you do that to a child? So I got an opportunity to sit on a prison commission, which was human rights for prisoners. And I thought a lot about it. I was like, I don't think I want to go in and speak with people that I've seen commit all these crimes. But I did take up that commission role because I wanted to go into these prisons unannounced, not just to see if there were human rights violations against the prisoners, but to understand what makes a person do what they do to a 3-year-old.
Right. Yes.
And I got to spend a lot of time with people who were isolated in the prison system, who were actually put into isolation because they were attacking other prisoners, because that was my job, to go in and check on them, and got to speak with a lot of these people. A lot of them are manipulators, so they're really good at mind games. Many of them have been in situations themselves. They were abused, or they lived in these communities, in these, cartel, in the cartels, literally. So a child who's been exposed to that kind of crime at an early age, what do you expect? What happens to them when they grow up? They do the same to another human being. I'll tell you a story of this little boy, Jesus. I met him when he was 8 and in Tijuana. And he was with a single mom who used to be a drug dealer, and his older sister. And the first time I met Jesus, I saw him pick up a little puppy and slam the puppy down. Like, he was literally trying to kill the puppy. And I was like, wow, like, I've never seen an 8-year-old do that. So I started talking to him, and we started working with the family. What I found was the mom used to take both the kids with her when she would do her drug dealings. And the kids had seen the mom get sexually assaulted and raped many times at that early age. He was 7 and 8 when I met him. We were able to get her a job. The kids started going to school. And you can change things around, but you have to do it in a way where it's a family unit. You can't just take a child away from the family and try to do it. You have to make sure that the mom, she has a job now, and the kids are in school. So they turned around their life. I don't know if the mental scars will ever go. They'll definitely need some kind of mental health help, but at least you can, save the rest of their lives by taking them out of that situation. But if we didn't give it to Jesus when he was that young, he would definitely grow up and do the same to some other child or woman.
I can just tell by visiting with you that you definitely have built up a not a wall, but you have a shield to protect your emotions a little bit so that you can charge forward with your initiative. Right. I would be crying all the time. I like you said, I guess over time you build up a resistance to that a little bit so that you can get the job done without overreacting emotionally.
I don't know. I do a lot of, I teach meditation. I actually spend a lot of time in consciousness studies and laws of vibration, and I teach teachers who teach meditation. So that helps me with my own refueling.
Yeah, just like you said a few times already on the episode, we are just so blessed being in the United States, and so many people just haven't seen all of these things. We take things for granted every single day. We get up, we turn on the light, we turn on the faucet, we flush the toilet, we turn on the heat, we turn on the air conditioner. All these little things we just take for granted.
Yeah, and then we complain about a cup of coffee. And I was telling someone, because they said to me, I can't donate right now. I'm not in a place to donate. I said, $1 is a really healthy meal for someone for 3 days in Africa, 3 days for a child. So that is, you probably spend like $15 on coffee every day.
Right.
And we don't even think about it. Like, oh, that's just $15 or $5, I went to Cape Verde, which is a small island country in Africa, and extremely poor, very poor country, beautiful country. And we went to the school, and they had 65 kids, little kids, and their monthly expense for food. The school provides them food because they come from really poor families, and the kids go home and they're empty stomach, like they don't have food. $60 a month. $60 a month can provide food for 60 kids in that school for a month.
Wow. These countries, are they so, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but is it because there's no resources there? There's no minerals. Are the countries not developed because there's nothing of value there, like oil or mining or whatever? Like, I don't, why are they so?
Africa is one of the richest continents in the world. It's really rich in natural resources. It's incredibly rich.
Okay.
But the income gap is also really too much. Like the people at the top are extremely rich, and then you have a very poor, lower class. There's no middle class, and there is a lot of corruption. And that's what Keith, my co-founder, his perspective was so important for me because, I'll tell you this, when that explosion happened in Lebanon, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, where the entire seaport exploded in Beirut. A lot of people died. We were there 7 days after the explosion with aid. And my team spent about 24 hours a day for 7 days to get in touch with embassies and governments to see if they would provide aid directly to the people. There was a lot of donations that were going into either the Red Cross, but the Lebanese Red Cross, right? And I remember reaching out to the German embassy, and I said, there are 3 hospitals with kids who have cancer, and the hospitals are completely demolished because of the explosion. It's gone. The kids are sitting in the rubble. They need treatment. They need medical aid. Can you reach out to all these other nonprofits, the Lebanese Red Cross, for instance, and say, can you provide some of the medical aid that we gave you, meaning the German embassy gave them, to these hospitals? Don't give it a gift. Give it directly to the hospital. The answer wasn't a negative. Because so this is where the mindful giving comes into play, because when you have $10 to donate, and you give it to a nonprofit, especially in times of disaster, there are 2 things which are happening. One is transitional aid, which is the first 1 month, a few weeks after the disaster strikes. You need food, medical care, all those things. Then there's recovery, which is rebuilding the city. So if all your money goes to a nonprofit that only does transitional aid, Red Cross doesn't do rebuilding.
I see.
So if you are giving all your money to a nonprofit that only does one thing, there's not much money left for the other thing. And then the nonprofits who are in that phase struggle because a lot of grassroots level nonprofits do the rebuilding, recovery work, and that's the other thing too. This is where I said to you, I think nonprofit industry exploits exploitation, because anytime a disaster strikes or there's a child that was exploited, we can show you that and raise a lot of money. If I show you a child, there was a child from Morocco that I was helping. He was beaten up so bad by his dad, and his dad killed his older sister. So we were trying to move the mom and the child away from the dad, and the dad went to prison for 1 year. So when I posted that kid's photograph, we raised a lot of money for the kid. We did. But because we showed a child that was exploited. Now I post a lot of, if you go to my Facebook or my LinkedIn, you see I post a lot of kids who are in school and they look
Yes.
healthy.
Yes.
But they all live in these communities. They live in South Africa and Mexico, and they are in school through our school sponsorship program. And I always ask people to help with school sponsorships because you don't want the child to get exploited and then run and try to help the child.
I see.
The whole
Very
idea
good.
is to do it before something happens to them.
Very
And there are
good.
not many nonprofits trying to do that.
Very good. Okay. I love that overview. You're so right. I think probably 90% of Americans are not mindful donators, right? They just, like you said, they just send some money to the Red Cross or whatever it is. They take their clothes down to Goodwill or whatever. I mean, they don't really investigate and look at what they're doing with their donation dollars.
And the governments will take the tax dollars and they're sending aid, but the aid goes to, coming back to your earlier question about why these countries are so poor, because the government aid that goes from US, for instance, the United States sent out a lot of money to Africa for COVID relief.
Okay.
I think in 2019 or 20. I didn't follow for this year, but they did in 2020. The 4,000 household community in Johannesburg, the kids were dying of hunger because they didn't see any of that money come down to them, any of it, not even a penny. So I don't know what happened to that money, and when governments do aid work, if the money goes from one government to the other, and if it's going to a country like that, I can almost guarantee you that it's going to sit somewhere up in someone's bank account, some politician somewhere is getting really rich.
You have a passion. You definitely have a passion for following the money trail. I can tell that when you see a foundation or a nonprofit, I can tell that you're very skeptical and careful, and you're watching. You want to know where the money's going because you've seen it go the wrong direction probably many times, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I've also seen how words get twisted with the nonprofits. They could be asking you to donate blood, but they're saying you donate blood to us, we sell it.
Wow.
So you have to be really mindful about what you're doing when you give. And I want people to give more, but it's really easy. I would say start with volunteering for a nonprofit. Give them your time and see what they're doing.
How about they start with gift? How about they just go to ggiusa.org?
Yeah, they can. I mean, with any nonprofit, that's why I did with Red Cross. It teaches you so much about that nonprofit that you can almost defend it if you think they're doing amazing work, or leave them if they're not doing. But you will never find out unless you spend some amount of time either volunteering for them or getting to know the highest level of management. And it's impossible to do that in corporate nonprofits. How many CEOs of corporate nonprofits do you see in the field?
Yeah, no.
I was at the Red Cross, and I was never in the field. I was the highest level of management, never in the field, because it's a corporate structure. With Gift, go through my social media. I'm in the field every single day, which is why I left Red Cross, because I wanted this. I wanted to see that if you give us $1, it makes it all the way to the family.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Why is LA your base? Is that just strategically? Is that a good place to be for donations? Why live there? I'm just curious.
Because I lived here all my life since I came to the US. So I haven't moved. Yeah. Since I graduated, I just moved here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No particular reason.
But you got family, friends, all that. I mean, you have,
Yeah, I have a good support structure. Yeah. And then Mexico is really close to LA. So we get to go there every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Very good. Last question. I know we're almost out of time. And by the way, I just really appreciate your passion. Everything you're doing is really special. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. A lot of people, we all just go through our lives, here in the US, we go to our little jobs and we come home and make dinner and we watch our little TV shows and we meet our friends down at the bar and we don't even think about it, right? We just don't even think about a child somewhere using the restroom in some ditch because there's no toilets. So we don't even think about it. And And I think more people should be involved and understand where the needs are and donate mindfully. Like you said, we all could do a much better job. So thank you for everything you're doing. And one more time for the listeners, ggIUSA.org. I want to ask you one last question, Manna. I already know what your core purpose is, right? Because we've been talking about it for an hour, but if you had to define it in like a sentence, like one sentence for Manna's overall core purpose in life, what is that? What does that sound like?
Say that again, ask your question again.
Yeah. What is if you had to define your core purpose in life, like what is your overall core purpose in a sentence? What does that sound like?
I think it's in one word. It's empowerment. I like the word empowerment because that's more sustainable. And if I have to put that in one sentence, it would be, I believe in bringing a hand up, not a handout.
I love that. And you talked a lot about that during the conversation. Thank you. You've educated me a bunch, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners too. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story on the Riderflex podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.